This video is covering the distributive property. It's one of the 5 properties you really need to understand for 7th grade math. So distributive property is when you're multiplying a single term by 2 or more terms inside a set of parentheses. And we're going to just go through a couple examples. So this first example we have is all variables. It's A times the sum of B and C. So what you do is you take that outside term, the A, and you multiply it by B, and you're going to write that as A times B. Then you also have A times C, and there you go. So you have A times B plus A times C. Over here we have A times the difference of B and C, or A times the difference of B minus C. Here you're going to distribute the A to the B and get the A times B. Now you can write A times B as A right up against B. Now this one's a little bit different. Think of this as minus the A times C. And there you go. Now notice how you have AB here, A times B here. They mean the same thing. Same thing with the A times C and AC. In here you were adding the terms and you add their products. Here you were subtracting the terms and you're going to subtract their products. Just be aware that the outside term gets distributed to the inside terms. One way you can apply distributive property is with mental math. This is just a quick little side note. Let's say you have 6 times 23. Now, that can be hard to work out, but if you break this 23 apart into 20 plus 3, you can use the distributive property to figure things out. So you're going to go 6 times 20 and then also 6 times 3, and you're going to add those results. 6 times 20 is 120, 6 times 3 is 18. Put those two together, you get 138. So if you can do that in your head, this is a really cool way of multiplying some 2-digit numbers. But the main thing we're going to get into is coming up now. So we've got variables going on. We have 3 times the sum of 4 plus A. We're going to take that 3 and multiply it by both terms. We're going to do the 3 times 4, and then everything's positive, so it's just going to be plus 3 times A. So now you work out what you can. We can simplify 3 times 4 into 12. The 3 times A can be rewritten as 3A. And this is all you can do with it. You've distributed the 3 to both terms, and you're done. You can't work this out any further. So the outside term, the 3, was distributed to the inside terms. Now we have 5 times the difference of n minus 4, or 5 times the difference of n and 4. You take the 5, you distribute it to the n. Now this is where it gets a little bit challenging. You could think of this as a negative 4, or it's going to be minus the result of this. You have a positive times a negative, so it's going to be minus 5 times 4. And you work those out. You get the 5 times n, you get the 5 times 4. And there you go. So the 5 was distributed this time to the inside terms. So now we have negative 6 times the sum of m plus 4. Now your outside term's negative. You're going to need to keep track of that. You're going to have the negative 6 times m. That part's fairly easy. Then you have this negative 6 times 4. So this is going to end up being a negative number, and then you'll subtract it in the final answer. Negative 6 times n can be rewritten as negative 6m. Negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. So the negative 6 was distributed to the inside terms this time. Now we have negative 2 times the difference of c minus 4. You're going to take that negative 2 and multiply it by the c and the negative 4. So you got the negative 2 times c. And then this is where it gets a little bit weird. You have the negative 2 times negative 4. Negative times negative actually becomes a positive. So you have the negative 2 times c changing to negative 2c. Negative 2 times negative 4 becomes a positive 8. The negative 2 was distributed to the inside terms. So now you need to think about backwards distributive property. Sometimes they'll want you to pull out the common factor and rewrite it with the factor in front of the parentheses. So if you break this apart, I'm looking at the 8c. I see this 24, and what you want to do is there a factor of 24 that's actually 8? And there is. So you can think of this as 8 times c plus 8 times 3. And then they have that common factor of 8. You pull that out, and what's left is the c and 3 in the parentheses. This one's a little more tricky, but if you worked this out, 8 times c would give you the 8c, 8 times 3 would give you the 24. So in this case, the common factor became the outside term. Let's try another one of these. You want to see if 2 fits into 10 in any way. So you have the negative 2 times n, and you could think of this as 2 times 5. They both have a common factor of negative 2, so you can pull that out front, and it leaves the n and 5 left over. And then you always want to double check that this makes sense. Negative 2 times n does give you the negative 2n. Negative 2 times positive 5 does give you the negative 10. So the negative 2 was pulled out, and it became the outside term. I hope this helps. Best of luck to you.